Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in film, Devin. And today we're going to be sharing our thoughts, our insights, our comments, our questions, our concerns on the first episode of HBO's mini-series, more so just a limited series, The Penguin. But before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at FilmOptix. That is Optix with an X. Or you can email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. You can also send us a text message by clicking on Send Us a Text Message in the episode notes below of this episode. Devin, welcome back to Gotham City. What's going on? What's today? Is today Wednesday? Thursday? Thursday. Thirsty Thursday. We are thirsting for some Penguin, some new television content to grace our screens. I know we've been busy watching the industry. You're more so ahead than I am, and I think they actually just announced that they're renewing it for a fourth season.
Great news.
I need to catch up.
Yeah, so I've got to start season 3 still.
See, yeah, I mean, hey, you're in a better position than I am, but I think I'm going to this weekend. I don't have too much going on, but it really just depends. I'm hoping I can get a full day in, maybe like some Saturday nights or like during Saturday during the day, Friday night before football on Sunday, of course. But how's your week been, buddy? What's going on?
Been a pretty good week. Speaking of strange animals on HBO Max, I also watched the documentary that came out on Max called Chimp Crazy. I don't know if you heard of this.
Chimp Crazy, it's called?
Yeah, it's from the creator of Tiger King. So it's kind of a big deal that he has a new animal documentary coming out. Yeah, it's about chimpanzees. I won't say it's as crazy as Tiger King, but it is definitely very entertaining. It's just these people that are obsessed with chimps.
Do they have like this underground chimp ring?
Basically, like there's certain states where it's legal to own pretty much any animal. I think Missouri is the main one they're in. So it's like $50,000. You can just have a chimp in your home.
That's pretty crazy. And I don't know why anyone would want to pay that much money when you can buy, how many PlayStation 5 Pros with that money?
A few. But the PlayStation 5s won't murder you. So there's a safety factor there.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, you might be able to give a few away, for like Christmas or something to all the neighborhood kids or whatnot. But yeah, okay, I'll have to check that out for sure. Outside of that, man, have I been watching No, I really haven't. That's kind of sad to think about. I've been just been so much trying to get some paperwork together, get my passport, don't you know? So it's a lot of fun.
We're in the prime time for TV, so it's time. We're in the thick of it now.
We really are. There's not too many movies I want to see outside of 2. And I think I mentioned that in last week's episode. There's that new Halle Berry movie coming out, or that's out this weekend. I'm blanking on the name of it right now. But there's
Never
also
Let Go.
Don't Let Go or Never Let Go.
One of those.
Yeah, it's never / Don't Let Go. I think it's called Never Let Go. And I also want to see My Old Ass, but I also have to see Dee Dee as well. Man. So those are 3 movies I need to see. But there's so much more television I need to watch. So I think I'm going to just drive through the television shows because that takes a little bit longer than most. But as I mentioned before, we're going to be giving our spoiler-free thoughts on the first episode of The Penguin, which of this recording, by the time that this is out, the first episode would have already dropped on HBO Max. And this show is also broadcasting on HBO. So if you have a cable subscription, you're going to be able to watch the show if you don't have Max. So you'll be able to watch it, the old standard way of watching television before we entered this age of streaming. So I think that's pretty awesome that it's also being broadcasted or televised on HBO cable subscriptions as well. And usually you can tell that by the start of every TV show, especially for HBO. If it's a Max show or an HBO Max show, it's going to show that Max startup thing. But if it's produced by HBO, you get the psh, oh, and that's what you get with the Penguin. So
yeah, not confusing at all.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, the classic HBO static intro, that's when you know the good shiz is coming. That's all I have to usually say. With Max, it's hit or miss, but with the HBO intro, you're getting a good show. But enough chatter, Devin. Let's dive straight on in to our spoiler review of episode 1 of The Penguin, and that is titled After Hours. So we'll be right back after this introduction to The Penguin, episode 1.
Come on. You can help me up.
Life is just a dream.
You promised me, Oswald. I know now. I deserve a better life. I'm working on it. The world ain't set up for the honest man to succeed. That should be the American dream right there. Beautiful story with a happy ending. But that ain't the way the world works. America's a hustle. Not that I'm complaining.
And we are back with our spoiler-free review of episode 1 of The Penguin, which is titled After Hours. Again, this is televised on HBO. You'll be able to watch it on HBO. And if you have the Max streaming service, you'll also be able to watch it there. I truly hate that they went with this Max thing. It really messes with my mind because it says on the poster, HBO original. So it's an HBO show.
But then the trailer says a Max original. Like I'm watching the trailer play now and it says Max everywhere.
Which shouldn't be happening because it is an HBO original, which is different from a Max original. But we're not going to get into...
I think they changed it at one point.
They did. They changed it from a Max original to an HBO original because...
Yeah, it's just not confusing at all. Just go with it. Just accept your Warner overlords.
Yeah. it's so like basically what House of the Dragon or like Game of Thrones did. It's this whole thing because if it's an HBO original, they're able to televise it on cable and that generates them revenue that way. And it's this whole thing. I can't even get into it. As I mentioned before, we're here to talk about The Penguin, episode 1. This is a limited series of 8 episodes total. So as I mentioned before, by the time you're listening to this, episode 1 will already be out for people to watch. The way that we're going to tackle this is the way that we usually tackle most of our TV shows, since there is a lot that we do want to cover outside of The Penguin. This is going to be a standalone episode for episode 1. And then once the series concludes, we will be doing a season 1 overview of The Penguin. So we will be coming back to it. And we're going to be doing the same thing for TV shows such as Agatha All Along as well, and whatever other TV shows we may or may not cover in the future for this year. But the creator of this show is Lauren LaFranc, and stars Colin Farrell, Kristen Milioti, and Reyes Feliz, just to name a few. Of course, if you know who Kristen Milioti is, she's been in a numerous amount of projects. Most prominent role that she's probably had to date was playing the mother from How I Met Your Mother. And Colin Farrell, if you don't know who he is, I don't know what to tell you.
How I Met Your Mobster. That's her
How
new
I
name.
Met Your Mobster. I like that. And that, kids, is How I Met Your Mobster. But man, I saw her in that press release. I was like, wow, man, everyone just looks so good. It's like crazy. You know what I mean?
Well, Penguin's not looking the best, but
no,
that's just him. You just gotta
Well,
accept
yeah.
it.
I meant like at the premiere, Colin Farrell being at the premiere. I would be very shocked if he actually came dressed in the Penguin outfit. But just from the premiere, like I love it when there's premieres for television shows because you very seldom, if ever, get to watch a television show like on a big screen. And I've said this for years. I think another way for movie theaters to make money would to just broadcast, like stream like the Penguin or Agatha All Along or even the new Dune Prophecy coming out, like, you know, on Sundays or something, and just, you know, have a bunch of people come together and watch it. I think that would be pretty awesome. But, you know, I'm just one person altogether. But the synopsis for this story is as follows. Following the events of the Batman 2022 film, Oz Cobb, aka the Penguin, makes a play to seize the reins of the crime world in Gotham. So this is literally the next chapter, you can say, in Matt Reeves's Batman universe. I believe he is attached to this project in some way, shape, or form. I think he's a producer of some sort, or an executive producer, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so we're just gonna dive straight on into our spoiler-free thoughts of this. Devin, what are your thoughts of episode 1 of The Penguin?
Yeah, going into this one, I think there's a fair amount of excitement for it just because it's been so long since the Batman came out. At least it feels like it has. 2022, like you mentioned, so it's been 2 years now, over 2 years since that release. So this coming out at this time feels like a nice kind of bridge in order to get us to Batman 2, which unfortunately isn't coming until 2026. It has been confirmed. So this is definitely helpful for what would have been a 4-year gap between the movies. You kind of have this to make it a little better and just fill in that missing time. And we don't have that long of a wait in comparison. So I think I just think it's just so nice to be back in Gotham, in this world that Matt Reeves has built. Like the criminal underground and just the seedy dealings and everything you expect from a Gotham / Batman series is all there, and it just feels so right. And I think Colin Farrell as the Penguin, he just transforms, and I think it's so cool to watch. He's just so good at playing like creepy or weird type of characters. He's been doing that for a few years now. And I just love his little penguin waddle throughout the episode.
Yeah.
It just feels so right. And then, like you mentioned, Christina Miliotti's in this one. She's kind of playing the mob boss's daughter, Sophia Falcone. And she's got the innocent look, those big wide eyes, but you know there's something sinister going on in that brain there. I think this episode does a great job of building up to that, and with her reveal and everything. I overall really like the episode. I like the relationship set up between the Penguin and his kind of protege that he finds, Victor Aguilar. I was actually looking online to see if that name has any meaning into the greater Batman lore, but I think it's just a character created for this series, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
He's got a nice protege to work with him, and he's kind of shown him the ropes to be in the mob world, just that mob boss mentality, and he got some great scenes overall. I think there's a couple shootouts here and there. We get some
chase scenes,
some chase scenes or some nice dialogue, and then towards the end there's also some nice reveals, and I think it sets up for a nice season moving forward. It's just great to be back.
I could not agree more. So much so that I actually watched this episode twice. I thought it was so nice. I watched it twice. But this is a very solid season premiere for The Penguin. Because like you said, Devin, it's been about 2 years since the Batman hit theaters, and we are returning back to that world. And it feels like we have not skipped a beat. Like the production value is still there. Gotham still feels like its own character. It still feels run down and hopeless and soulless. It also still has like that blood orange sky in some points. But you also get to see the nicer-esque daytime of Gotham. So it's not like the entire episode is happening at night, but I thought that this was just not like a 100% masterpiece, but it was pretty freaking amazing, from like the characters to the plot, the suspense through this episode alone. Like, it is a bit of a slow burn.
Yeah, I think it takes a little bit to get into it, but I was pretty invested, like, I'd say about 10 minutes in or so, and I was pretty locked in after that.
Yeah, and there's a really awesome opening scene that happens with the first episode as well that I wasn't really expecting, which puts Penguin in a very sticky situation. You know, when you're watching the first episode, you get to understand a little bit more of Ozzy, or Oswald, as some people may call him. You know, he is working for the Falcons. He's not the Penguin that you like, the established Penguin that you know from the Batman lore. This is kind of his start almost. But, you know, I think the show, or this episode so far, does a good job of walking the line of, you know, it is the Penguin. And I know in today's day and age, it's like, oh, well, every villain out there has to be super sympathetic. And it's like, no, I just want a villain who is like cold to the touch, just, you know, bad to the bone for no reason. We don't need a tragic backstory of how he turned out or how she turned out the way that they did. But I think this episode draws a fine line between giving us a quick enough look into Penguin's home life, especially for the first episode, and where he stands in the world of Gotham as of right now. Like, as I mentioned, he is working for the Falcons, and there's also the other mob family, the Maronis, which the Falcons and the Maronis, if you know Batman lore, they're always at odds and ends with each other. But it is a really great opening for this scene, for this show, I should say. And I think this episode definitely it's going to set us up for an amazing journey. And it starts to move a bit fast paced, you know, like Devin said, about the first 10 minutes, it is a bit of a slow burn, but like, it's still good. You know what I mean? Like, I think the first episode has hooked me enough to keep watching. Like I mentioned before, this is 8 episodes altogether, but you know, the acting, you know, between Colin Farrell, like, he just delivers this insanely outstanding performance, like, as the Penguin. And I think, I mean, you know, I can't really compare him to Danny DeVito's Penguin, because those are two very different portrayals. But you know, the way that Oswald carries himself in Gotham, and how he is kind of like the middleman almost, you know, he's just like a cog in this big crime lord machine. And if you've watched the Batman, of course, you know, it does start off with a few familiar images from the Batman film, but I don't think you necessarily have to watch the Batman in order to know, or in order to watch this.
It actually got me itching to go back and watch it, because I have not rewatched it since it came out. Like, it's just so good to be back in that world.
Yeah, and today, I mean, not today. Yeah, and you know, right now is the perfect time. You know, spooky season, and the Batman itself was part of it was heavily inspired by Batman: The Long Halloween as well. But yeah, it does make me want to go back and watch it, because it's, you know, Colin Farrell's performance in that movie was just amazing. But I like how they're able to have this interlude story where it's not necessary to watch if you want to watch the next film, or, you know, if you just want to watch the Penguin, you can watch the Penguin and then go back and watch the Batman and be totally like okay, because this first episode doesn't really even give anything away from the movie. Just like the final act,
There's a small little recap at the beginning, but nothing crazy.
Exactly. Like, you know, and I don't even know if Batman's going to appear in this.
I think it's been confirmed that he's not.
Okay, that's what I thought, because it's like, you know, it's called the Penguin. You don't want the Batman to be there. Then it's, you know, it's going to take away from the Penguin, and you know, it's going to be the Batman show. much like Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian. But I was blown away with at least the first episode so far, with how everything kind of comes full circle. There was a lot of plot twists that I did not expect that were going to happen. And as we had mentioned, with the three main characters of this episode, with that being Colin Farrell's character, of course, the Penguin, Kristen Milioti as Sophia Falcone, and of course we have Victor Aguilar, played by Reyes Felix. I think everything is starting to come together. Like, okay, like this is the Penguin, and when it comes to TV, it's so important to have a good episode to hook people in for the first episode, and hopefully to have them stick around for sure. But
I mean, if that foot reveal is not enough to keep you watching, I don't know what is.
Dude, man, even I've watched this twice, like I mentioned, and both times I cringed. I was half tempted to like pause and be like, dude, look at that. That's so But I definitely think there's so many standouts in this episode, and it's hard to, give flowers to just one person, because it doesn't work unless everyone is there, and so it's one of those episodes where I think it sets the tone perfectly for the next 7 episodes to come. But I wanted to pass over to you, Devin. Do you have anything else you wanted to mention in this spoiler-free review of episode 1 for The Penguin?
Yeah, it's kind of giving me like some Daredevil vibes. Obviously, there isn't as much. It's not as action-packed as Daredevil is, but just that kind of seedy underground, and you got Penguin being kind of like Kingpin. There's kind of similar characters in a way. I think it's just cool to watch them do their thing. I also think it's cool that the composer of this series is Mick Giacchino, who is the son of Michael Giacchino. So they're kind of keeping it in the family, which is like a theme of the show in a way.
Definitely is. That is pretty cool. I did not know that.
It's a nice family business being a composer for really, really cool movies.
Yeah. And I know that you were mentioning before we recorded, people on the interweb were having a little bit of an outcry about Oswald Cobblepot's name being changed to Oz Cobb.
Yeah, I just saw some complaints about like, oh, if you're not going to follow the comics, why are you even doing it? It's just like, I don't know, man. Oz Cobb sounds cooler than Oswald Cobblepot.
Yeah,
it's hard to even say all in one word.
Cobblepots. But yeah, it goes back to that whole discussion of, there are people out there who just think, if it's comic book accurate, that automatically makes it good, and I disagree with that.
Or that it has to be comic accurate to be good.
Yeah, I definitely disagree with that, because this is an adaptation. So it's an adaptation of the Falcones, the Maronis, Penguin, the whole nine, the entire Batman universe. So of course it's going to stay within the same realm as the Batman. And even just looking at this trivia piece from IMDb, the Penguin's name was changed from Oswald Cobblepot to Oz Cobb in the Batman universe to make the character more grounded. DC had thought about changing his name at some point, but it never done it. And Matt Reeves asked, "Can I call our character Oz Cobb?" And Jim said, "Absolutely." So there you go.
Yeah, it's that easy. That simple.
Yeah, it's easy to just roll off the tongue, things of that nature. And I love how integrated this is with the Batman. But also, what we had mentioned earlier, we were talking about the whole, and this is another trivia bit here. I just kind of want to clear the air because I feel like I didn't do a good enough job earlier in the episode. So the series was originally advertised as a Max original. We already talked about that. But it was decided ahead of the premiere that it would instead air on HBO along with their upcoming IP-based programming from Warner Brothers Discovery, such as Welcome to Derry, the It prequel, and Dune Prophecy. So it will simultaneously release on Max as well as other HBO originals has. So just to clear the air a little bit there, it's on the trivia bit there, so I thought that was pretty interesting altogether. But I will say, have you noticed that the G in Penguin and the Penguin logo is shaped to form a beak, kind of like a triangle almost? Did you notice that?
You can kind of see it.
Yeah,
Maybe.
you can kind of sort of see it.
Speaking of G, I saw a video on Instagram of Colin Farrell talking about how he kind of snapped back into character whenever he was on set and he was losing his accent. Apparently, his little trigger phrase that actors use to get back into the accent was gefilte fish.
Gefilte fish.
It's pretty funny.
That is pretty funny. I'm not sure what a gefilte fish is, but I would love to.
Yeah, apparently it's a Jewish delicacy. It's a ground deboned fish.
Ooh.
Does not look pleasant. I'll say that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty disgusting. I don't even think Carmi would take a swing at that gefilte fish, or maybe so. He would like dress it up or something like that. I don't know. I guess
They might have it at their Christmas dinner. Who knows?
Yeah. God, such a good episode. But also, Devin, I have to mention this. Colin Farrell actually fought to have his version of the Penguin smoke tobacco in the Batman that came out in 2022, but he was unsuccessful. For his own series, however, the character is depicted as an occasional tobacco user with a preference for cigars. And
he gave Vic that cigar. He's like, here you go, kid.
So I got to ask Devin, have you ever mixed like all the slushy flavors together?
I can't say that I have, no.
I can't say that I have either, but
if the Penguin says it's good, maybe it is.
Yeah, he said it was the best thing ever. I was like, I mean, I don't know if that's just nostalgia talking, but good on him. I'm very, very happy for him. And for our last bit of trivia here, Colin Farrell is actually the second actor to play the Penguin in live action to be seen smoking tobacco after Burgess Meredith in the Batman 1966 TV series and the Batman 1966 movie. Although the promotional material for Danny DeVito's portrayal in Batman Returns that came out in 1992 had him smoking, in the actual film, he did no such thing and even rejected the habit. That's pretty interesting. A lot of smoking facts here. Like 2 back-to-back, which is pretty insane to actually think about. But so let's just jump into our final thoughts. Before we go any further, just to let any new listeners out there know, when it comes to us covering television, we actually don't give our ratings for one episode of a show that hasn't finished because we haven't seen the rest of the season. So we're just going to be giving our final thoughts for The Penguin, and definitely just come back and make sure to tune in for our overview of season 1, or season 1 of The Penguin, since it is a limited series, for our actual scores on the series as a whole. But Devin, what are your final thoughts for The Penguin episode 1?
Yeah, final thoughts. It's great to be back in the streets of Gotham that Matt Reeves has set up for us, and I think it's a great bridge to get us from Batman to Batman Part 2. And I think we'll see how the story goes, but I think it's a great start and a great step in the right direction to see where the Penguin can take us with his little waddle.
Man, he had like that. It's kind of like a brace almost on his foot, because it's like, you got to get that support. I will say he moves pretty fast.
Yeah, he's not slow. He definitely keeps up the pace.
Like, I'm not sure if that's just like years of practice, or like, he just likes to get his little exercise in when it comes to he definitely gets his steps in for the day.
Yeah, a lot of movement around the city.
Yeah. But actually, did you notice because for the longest time, I thought his jackets, or like his suit jacket, was black. It's like a dark purple.
Yeah, he likes his purple. His car too is Maserati, purple and gold.
That was a real nice Maserati. I was like, oh, okay. He's a bit of a in between guy, so he knows how to take care of himself, for sure.
I'm sure some people will think it's a Joker Easter egg.
Yeah. Probably, but I don't know, because he's worn like purplish stuff before, but I just assumed it was black, but I didn't notice it on my first watch. The second time that I watched it, I was like, oh, it's purple. Okay. But to echo Devin, I think this is a great start to what we both hope to be a amazing series. You know, that this is HBO, so they usually do not disappoint when it comes to their television shows. It is, of course, you know, the home box office, that is their bread and butter. I think that's Warner Brothers' bread and butter, and has been for a very long time. But as I mentioned before, like, I was kind of blown away of how much I liked this first episode. Like I mentioned, I watched it twice. I thought it was fantastic. I can't wait to see more. And, you know, Colin Farrell, just like you said, Devin, he just transforms into that person, and you forget that you're, you know, watching him. It's literally insane with how thick his actual accent is, which is
and his
crazy.
makeup.
But, yeah. But this is definitely one of the best openings to a DC show that I've seen in a while. But I know this actually isn't the only DC show that's coming into existence. I believe it's season 3 of Superman Lois. I started watching that show.
I also saw
Devin.
Kite Man popped up on HBO Max.
Yeah, Kite Man's on there too. Forgot about that one. Yeah, I forgot about that one. But overall, I think this is as great, close to a masterpiece as a television show as you can get. As we mentioned, a lot of twists and turns. We have some fantastic acting, and the production design here is amazing. I didn't notice there was one scene. I think it's when Colin Farrell's character, the Penguin, runs into his lackey. It was kind of like that weird, like, blurry background. And I've noticed that in a lot of TV shows lately, where it's like too blurry. I'm like, are they on set? Are they somewhere else? I'm assuming it's like a blue screen or a green screen. But overall, like, I didn't really have any issues for this first episode. I thought it was very well written. And that does conclude today's episode. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at Film Optix. And don't forget to share an episode of our podcast with a fellow movie lover, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Spread the love for the Film Optix podcast. And again, we are going to be covering this show collectively when episode 8 drops in a few weeks. We got 7 weeks to go, so we will be back for that. And that, you know, we can just geek out. It's going to be spoilers all together. We're going to talk about the whole thing. We're going to be giving our ratings, and hopefully we'll have a few guests come onto the show as well, because I know a lot of people are going to be watching this. But let's take a sneak peek at our new review releases that you can actually start listening to as of right now. So we just finished covering Transformers 1 as well as Beetlejuice. I think those are two phenomenal movies that people should be checking out in theaters, that are now playing in theaters as of September 19th, 2024. We've also covered Alien Romulus, since it is the start of the spooky season. Did you see, Devin, that Alien Romulus is like the most profitable IMAX horror movie like to date, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me too, man. I'm very excited for that Alien Earth as well. But for upcoming releases, we are going to be covering the first 2 episodes of Agatha All Along. That is the new Agatha show that is from Marvel Television. So we're going to be covering that. It's going to be the same structure as the Penguin as far as covering the entire series. But we're also going to be covering The Wild Robots, which I'm very excited about. I think that's our next film that we're going to be covering here on the show. So definitely keep a lookout for that. And with all that said, again, thank you all for listening. If you enjoy the show, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And stay connected with us by following us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, all that social media garbage for the latest updates. That was Devin, and I'm Christian signing off. And remember, life is like a movie. So go out there and make it a blockbuster.
Peace.